Hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back to Deutsche Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. This episode is part 2 of my series in which I reflect on my experience with the Eras Tour, and in particular the Vienna shows which were cancelled because of the uncovering of the plans for a terrorist attack. So, just like last week, I feel the need to give out a trigger warning before I proceed with my recollection. In this episode, I'm going to discuss topics such as terrorism and terrorist attacks, death, and the emotional warfare that occurs after almost becoming a victim of a brutal massacre. If you find these topics triggering, then maybe this episode is not for you. Maybe revisit one of my older, more lighthearted ones. And just like last time, I will give you a few seconds now to turn off this episode if you have decided to do so. And please take care of yourself, guys, and I will see you soon. Okay, let's explore all the aspects I have had to deal with since that day. Since the 7th/8th of August, after I found out that the concert that I had been looking forward to and saving money for over a year had been cancelled, literally hours before it started, because the government had discovered that there was a terrorist attack planned to take place at the concert. The lore is loring. So let's just dive right into it because there is a lot to cover today. I personally intentionally avoided all the Eras Tour content online because I wanted to be surprised. I wanted all songs to be surprise songs for me. I didn't see the movie when it came out last year, and I haven't seen it still. Although my friends and I randomly stumbled upon a bar in Slovakia that was playing the movie for Slovak Swifties, but there were too many people for me to actually see the screen. But we did stay there for a big chunk of it, but I still have no clue what the Eras Tour looks like, even though I already have had a sample of what it sounds like. I have seen multiple TikToks every now and then, but I scroll when they show up on my For You page. But after that bar experience, which the people who own the bar just decided to do out of, I don't know, not pity, but because they felt bad for the Swifties. So after that experience, I have a general idea of what the soundtrack would have been like. Still, I don't think I'm going to watch the movie even now, after everything, when I know that I will not be experiencing the Eras Tour, because I don't feel like it will feel the same. I don't think that watching it at home will do it the justice it deserves. And also, I feel like it could potentially be very triggering, so I'd rather spare myself the trauma response that this could potentially raise. And since I'm not necessarily aware of what I have potentially missed, it doesn't feel like that big of a loss for the concert as a concert itself. I know that it is a record-breaking tour and one that is a must-see, but because I haven't seen it, I haven't interacted with it a lot, I didn't have expectations about the concert. I didn't have expectations about the concert as a production, apart from having the expectations to just have fun. So I don't feel like I'm missing out. Maybe it is true that what you don't know cannot kill you. Wait, that is so wrong of me to quote right now when discussing this exact topic, because had they not found out about the planned operation, it would have quite literally killed me. So I retract my statement. But basically what I'm trying to say is that since I don't know anything about the concert, I don't feel like I'm missing out. Let's just leave it at this. Because at the end of the day, it is just a concert, and no matter how much I respect an artist and their art, they are not worth losing my life over. And I respect them, and I respect like Taylor and her team for recognizing this as well and not putting us in unnecessary danger. So I don't have FOMO in that sense because I just don't know what I have missed out on. Actually, when the London shows took place, I tried to join a live stream of the concert of one of the fans who was inside. And I found it very triggering because it brought back and actually exacerbated all the feelings I had been suppressing. So what I did is I just logged off. And this brings me back to my decision of not watching the movie, because I saw how that grainy live stream affected me, and I had joined literally for a minute or two, and I don't want to put myself through such an emotional roller coaster for hours. But here's another concern that I have with regards to all the triggers and the way I respond to them. Because I physiologically and emotionally am still unable to control my trigger responses. They're still in their natural, raw, and unedited nature. And hopefully, as time passes, I will be able to control the way they make me feel. But as of now, I am far away from that, which is what brings me to that concern that I have. And it is the concern that this will change being a part of the fandom for me. And here, I'm not necessarily referring to all the dismissal I saw online from a big portion of the fandom. I mean, of course, a lot of people were empathetic, but there was just a significant chunk that was immediately on the get over it train. But let's leave this aside for a second because it enrages me so much and I just have things to say. But before that, the thing I'm actually referring to right now, when I say that I don't want this to change my fan experience, is that I really don't want to let this experience change my relationship with Taylor Swift's music. Because I enjoy her music and I want to be able to listen to it the way I have up until now. But right now, that is just not the case. I have been listening far less to her music since that happened, which makes me sad because I want to be able to enjoy the art. I don't want it to be taken away from me. But the line is very, very fine. And at this time, I'm crossing that fine line violently. At this stage, this is how my relationship with her music has been affected. And hopefully, it will not last forever. I mean, it is still early days, even though it happened weeks ago. And now, saying this, it's making me think. When I was visiting a friend last month, I got to experience new things and new places, and all I kept saying as a joke was, I will never again in my life be someone who has never been here or done this. Like, for instance, I would say, I will never again in my life be someone who has never seen the Eiffel Tower, for instance. And I used it as a joke, but also it gave me a nice perspective to invite gratitude about the things I got to experience, the things I got to see. Because I got to see and do a lot of cool things, and nobody could take that away from me. Because no matter what happens tomorrow, I will always have those experiences. I will have had that fun. And yeah, so that mindset really made me appreciate that like what I had, because I realized that what gifts the things I did are. And now I just cannot help but think how now, after all of this, never in my life will I ever be against someone who didn't have to go through this trauma. Never in my life will I ever be against someone who didn't nearly got massacred in a terrorist attack because she just wanted to sing All Too Well 10-minute version. And I know that this is a very pessimistic take, because it means that I'm letting the things that happen to me define me instead of me defining myself. But it just puts things into perspective about the potential long-term consequences of what we go through in life. And even though I plan on fully healing from it, and I am dedicated to heal from it, the healing of it all is what will also mark me in one way or another. So basically what I'm trying to say is that still it is a bit difficult for me to compartmentalize Taylor Swift's music and my personal experience with the Eras Tour. It is difficult to do that efficiently, and I want to be able to enjoy her music without thinking how that enjoyment almost cost me my life. So, the days after the cancellation of the shows, more and more information was being discovered about the plans behind the attack. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but I'm going to give you the relevant information. I don't know if it is even safe for me to speak on the matter, and I would never want to put myself or anyone who associates with me in unnecessary danger, which is why, if you're interested about the factual information in detail, I would just advise you to look it up yourself. But I think let's start with the quote-unquote lighter information and then progressively reach the emotional part. So, from a media scholar perspective, and we know I have this perspective, and as someone who grew up in Eastern Europe and now lives in Western Europe and on the daily basis has to fight discrimination, there is something that really pissed me off about the way the media reports were structured. So the news established short reports on the people behind the terrorist attack. And those children, because they are children despite being just a few years younger than me, which actually makes things worse because it makes me question all the evil that lives in this world and how certain people take advantage of young, susceptible minds to fulfill their ideologies and whatnot. But what really pissed me off, and can you hear that guy who literally is under my window blasting music? Wait, give me a second. I need to close my window. Not very mindful and demure of him. Anyways, so where was I? Oh, yeah, so those children, yeah, susceptible minds. And what really pissed me off, and please, by no means am I trying to excuse anyone's behavior, but I just found it an interesting journalistic choice to present the attackers through their nationality. And in particular, those people have Macedonian, Croatian, Turkish origins, and I'm not necessarily sure, but from what I remember, one of them might also have had Serbian origins, but don't quote me on that. Basically, what pissed me off about the media focusing on that aspect of the story instead of the problematic nature of the attack was that it, and trust me, I have spent 3 years studying this. So this stylistic choice subliminally creates an image of people from that origin as terrorists, as murderers. I don't think what really defined those people who chose to commit this was their nationality. I don't think it was their ethnic background. And choosing to focus on these aspects of their identity furthers the narrative of the Eastern Europeans as people disturbing the peace and quiet of Western Europe. Again, I'm not making excuses for the boys. I'm just trying to invite you to eradicate any stereotypes you might have assimilated through such narrative, because of course there are bad Eastern Europeans, but that does not mean they're all bad. So please, for the future, do not approach people from those countries, from those cultures, with the mindset that they're terrorists. This will only further the hate and evil that already reigns in this world. I don't think that their nationality and ethnic background had much to do with their plans. I don't think that in this particular situation they necessarily affected their mindset and urged them to act the way they intended to act. So, guys, please don't create and don't nourish a narrative of Eastern Europeans being detrimental to the West. I was just disappointed to see that racism, be it even so subtle, yet intentional, because trust me, the media know what they're doing and are aware of the influence of the connotations they create. So I was just disappointed to see that in their coverage of such a shaking event, race and ethnicity were still the things to lead with. And this just feeds an already established narrative about Eastern Europeans and about Balkan people in particular. And I'm sad to see that a significant chunk of the reactions I saw online have been focusing on that ethnicity aspect. Because I am Balkan and I am Eastern European, and I do not share those values. I do not share those ideologies, and I never will. And having to fight that narrative time and time again has been the bane of my existence since I moved in Western Europe. But you know what? Let's not perform a deep dive into the way the media chose to portray this. I think let's actually pay more attention to what really matters, which is not the origin of those people, but their actions, which is exactly what the media should have done. I'm just bringing this criticism to light. I'm bringing it to your attention so that I can prevent any generalizations about people from those countries being made. Because not all Macedonian, Croatian, Turkish, and Serbian people are like this. And treating them as terrorists will just create unnecessary international tension. And it is not my place to be a pacifist or a politician, but I just urge you to not generalize about those people. There are evil people everywhere, but not all people are evil. Anyways, let's focus on the attack. So, those guys were planning to commit quite a gruesome massacre. They were planning to use cars, machetes, knives, chemically suffocating materials, and bombs to unalive as many people as possible and unalive themselves afterwards. And hearing this and knowing you were meant to be there, that you were supposed to witness and experience this, is a vomit-inducing thought, to say the least. And before I talk about how all the discrediting of people who were directly affected makes me feel, let me first share my feelings with you. Then you can discredit them as much as you want. Waking up on the 8th of August, I felt heavy. I woke up early and I went outside to walk around while my friends were still in the accommodation resting. And I did feel the heaviness, but also I refused to acknowledge it because just like the people discrediting everything online, I was like, well, it didn't happen, so there is no need to let it affect me. But then I started thinking, and I was thinking a lot as I was walking around. Right now, like as I was walking, I was thinking, right now, I was supposed to be getting ready. I was supposed to be putting on glittery makeup and was supposed to be having the time of my life just to have my life taken away from me. And I cannot explain to you what a feeling it is to live a day when you know you were supposed to be brutally murdered that day. Because, okay, call me crazy, but I just know that had the attack happened, I wouldn't have been from the survivors. I just felt it in my bones. I felt it in my soul. I felt physical pain, and I just felt like I was supposed to die. Like I was meant to die. Like I was going to die. But I didn't. I just could very explicitly feel the pain of everything that was planned, and I couldn't, no pun intended, shake it off. And then I went to this memorial site in Bratislava, and there were so many people who had died when they were 22 and were commemorated there. And that really just, it made me cry. I called my mom and I cried and I cried and I cried until there was no more crying to do. Because I just knew I was supposed to die. And seeing all those graves triggered me in a way I didn't expect. And I just felt like, no, I literally fell apart. This feeling was coming and going in waves all throughout the following days. And it still is. Because healing is not a linear upwards path. It is fluctuating. Sometimes I will regress. Some days I will improve. It is a journey. So, but what I did then, while I was still in Slovakia and was trying to come to terms with everything, is I would just call my parents, thankful that I get to live to call my parents, but scared of the world we live in, scared of not knowing what is waiting behind the corner. And I think that this is a pretty normal reaction, because knowing that someone lived to kill you just because you wanted to sing a song is a mind-bending experience. It is perception shifting. I felt helpless. And even though I had been protected just in time, I felt extremely exposed. Because I recognized that the attack was not personally targeting me, but that didn't mean it wasn't going to target me. And that is something which I really find so disheartening and triggering from some people, of the people I have talked with about this. They keep telling me, well, had the attack happened, you could have been one of the survivors. Okay. But also, I could have been one of the unalived. And even if I survived, let's take up that scenario for a second. Can you imagine the emotional consequences you would have to deal the survivor guilt you would have to experience. They would mark you for life, and discrediting my feelings and discrediting the situation because it didn't happen is, in my opinion, an extreme lack of empathy and a lack of humanity. Because that is, like, apart from being told you could have been one of the survivors, what I'm being told more often is but it didn't happen. Why are you still thinking about it? Because yes, the attack didn't happen, but it was supposed to. I was supposed to be there. Those people were supposed to come and commit a massacre. Should they have committed this massacre for us to only then recognize the seriousness of the situation? That massacre is what would have, could have, and should have. And just because it didn't, doesn't mean I'm not allowed to grieve what would have, could have, should have. It is a miracle and a blessing that I'm alive. And I do not take it for granted. But don't take away my entitlement to feel fear, to struggle to cope, because you weren't there. And for you, it could have just been another headline on the news. But for me, it was my life. And it was supposed to cost me my life. And I just hate the narrative that is circulating online. And in my personal life as well, I have had people come up to me and tell me this. And it's just taking away directly affected people's entitlement to feel anger, to feel fear, to feel sadness, just because it didn't happen. Just because it didn't happen doesn't mean it was not going to. Just because it didn't happen doesn't mean it didn't traumatize me and everyone else who was affected. So have some humanity and let people go through this the way they see fit. Because it is not your pain to feel. It is not your almost death to grieve. And it is not your life to dictate me how to live and how to cope. I can let myself be sad and scared and still be full of gratitude that I am alive. I can appreciate every single breath and still know and respect the fact that those are breaths I wasn't supposed to be taking right now. I can feel more than one emotion at a time. And my trauma, my emotional response, doesn't have to take away from the gratitude I feel. And you saying that I should just get over it means that you're being an absolute prick who clearly has been immune against empathy. We can let people be complex. This is an event that changed my perspective and my life forever. And I don't understand why people are acting as if the terrorist attack, just because it didn't happen, is not scary. I always and forever have to live through the 8th of August with the idea that it was supposed to be my death day. And I'm not taking it for granted. I'm not taking for granted the fact that it was the day I was given a second chance at life. Gratitude does not eradicate melancholy. It does not eradicate fear. It does not eradicate trauma. They can coexist. So to everyone who has been rude and dismissive to me and to everyone else and to our feelings, I hope you never have to go through this. And I hope you never have to grieve the loss of a loved one who just wanted to go and have fun. The other day, my mama asked me if I plan on going to a concert in the future. And I genuinely don't have an answer to this question. Because I have shared this before with you. Concerts are my safe space. They're one of a kind, recharging, magical, beautiful experience that makes you feel alive. And I don't want to project my fear from what was going to happen at the Eras Tour to any other concert. I don't want to let that fear dictate my life, and I don't want to let it become me and stop me from experiencing life. I don't want my safe space taken away from me. But it is difficult because never before have I had to think about whether or not I will survive a concert or event for that matter. And now, naturally, this will be a thought that will occur in my head whenever tickets for someone I like go on sale. It is a very fine line, and I don't know still how to walk it. Because I could literally die at any given moment. I could die right now while recording or later when editing. And I think that this experience was a really good wake-up call about the fragility of life. Because I know theoretically that I can die at any given moment. But sometimes I forget. I think it's the naiveness that comes with being young and, thank God, overall physically healthy. Sometimes I forget that just because I am young, just because I have plans, ambitions and dreams, just because I'm imagining a future, doesn't mean that I am guaranteed life. There is no particular order when it comes to who will die first or last. And while I know this, I am guilty of taking it for granted a lot of times. Because we can all perish in a matter of seconds. And from what I can tell now, not by our own fault. Some things just cannot be predicted, and some things just cannot be prevented. That being said, again, I'm very thankful that this was all prevented and that I get to live and learn from my own naiveness. Which is why I have decided to approach this day, to approach this situation as the day I almost died, but more as the day I was given a second chance at life. Because there was a reason all of this was prevented. There was a reason why I am still here. And while I may still not know why is it that we all survived, I plan on taking this rebirth with me and establish a new system of gratitude and humbleness. I don't want to let the sparing of my life be in vain. I want this new chapter to be one of growth, to be one of meaning. I didn't survive just to stop living. And I want to live. I want to take this newfound respect for life and let it lead me through my days. And I won't lie to you. Maybe in the future, I will again be a bit careless. I will be maybe a bit entitled and forgetful in the sense that I will take my breaths for granted. But I want to promise myself that I will not let this situation define me. It will lead me to my life, and my second chance at life, I promise to make worthwhile. You know what is really interesting, I think? It never felt real that I was going to see Taylor Swift. And now it is not real after all. I remember talking to my friends as we bought the tickets, as we were planning our trip, as we arrived in Vienna. None of it felt real. I wouldn't say it was the typical too good to be true instance. I think it was just the not knowing anything about the tour. Because my friends also hadn't listened and watched. And the unfamiliarity of it all, the foreignness, just made it unreal. It was a very interesting experience because I'm going there, I'm getting ready, I'm making bracelets with my mom, I'm buying outfits, I'm planning trips, I'm working hard, and so on and so forth. But it all felt so distant. I knew what I was getting ready for, but it just felt surreal. I don't know if it was denial or dissociation or maybe something else. I genuinely wish I had the right terminology to name it, to express it. Because just saying it didn't feel real doesn't do it justice. Because I wasn't feeling the normal set of emotions pre-concert and pre-trip. I wasn't excited. I was just nervous. I was extremely anxious, trying to convince myself that this stress was just excitement. Now, looking back, I can see to a certain extent why it didn't feel real. And the more time passes, the less real the concert feels. Because the concert, in fact, did not take place. So, in actuality, Vienna, the Eras tour, wasn't real in the sense that it didn't take place. I'm not trying to discredit it whatsoever. What happened in Vienna is real. What was about to happen and was supposed to happen is real. What I mean by saying that the Eras tour didn't feel real is purely based on the fact that it didn't take place. And what sucks is that while the joy and the excitement and all the concert experiences do not feel real, the fear and the terror are as real as they can be. It is very interesting what the human mind chooses to perceive and focus on. Because how is my dissociation from the Eras tour so vivid and that of the fear practically non-existent? Why can I not let go of the fear? I don't want to gaslight myself into not being scared. I think it just circles back to what I just mentioned. Just because the attack didn't happen doesn't mean the threat wasn't real. Doesn't mean the trauma isn't real. I just wonder why my mind compartmentalizes these realities so harshly. Is it a trauma response or is it something else? I don't know. I really don't. Hopefully, with time, I know with time the fear will not become unreal. I will just learn to live with it, but I don't know. It all feels like a blur, but is also at the same time such a vivid emotion, and putting it into words is a bit dizzying. So maybe in another universe, I get to wear my Reputation outfit. Maybe in another universe, I get to listen to 22 while being 22 and to August during August. Maybe in another universe, I get to listen to You're on Your Own Kid as a surprise song and something in me heals. But maybe in another universe, the attack did happen. And maybe I did die in pain and in agony. Or maybe in another universe, the attack did happen and I survive and get to live with survivor's guilt for the rest of my life marked for eternity, with something that could potentially define who I am. Maybe. But until then, in this universe, I am happy that I am alive, and I will try not to take it for granted. I am happy that the attack was prevented and thousands of lives were spared. I am happy we grieved concerts and not lives. I am full of fear, but I know I am alive. And as long as I am alive, I can live through my emotions. I can learn from them. And I can use them to define myself, but not let them define me. In this universe, I survived the Eras storm. In this universe, I might not have gotten the chance to sing 22 while being 22, but at least I was gifted the chance to reach 23. And for that, I am forever grateful. I promise to try and make it worth it. I promise that there was a reason I got to live. And I promise this second chance at life is one I will not waste away. Thank you for listening to this episode, guys. Please take care of yourselves and of others. Goodbye.